Did you know you're walking around with one of the most incredible pieces of biological engineering ever made? Yep, it's your ear. And right now, at this very second, it's not just listening. It's pulling off two totally distinct and amazing feats. So let's get into it and see how this fascinating little machine actually works.
So, how in the world can one tiny organ do both of those things? Well, the answer is tucked away deep inside your head. We're going to take two little journeys through the inner ear. First, we'll follow a sound wave from start to finish, and then we'll track how you sense motion itself.
All right, first up, your inner sound system. We're going to trace the journey of a sound wave, from the air all the way to a signal your brain can actually make sense of.
Okay, so it all starts with the part of your ear you can see, the pinna. It's shaped like a funnel for a reason. It collects sound waves and shoots them down the ear canal. Bam! They hit the eardrum, the tympanic membrane, making it vibrate. Those vibrations get passed along this incredible little chain of the three smallest bones in your entire body. But all this beautiful mechanical work is about to run into a major roadblock, a wall of water basically. And that, right there, is a massive physics problem.
Yeah, just think about trying to shout at a friend who's underwater. Your voice doesn't really get through, does it? Most of the sound just bounces right off the surface. That's exactly the impedance problem. See, your outer and middle ear are filled with air, but the inner ear, the cochlea, is filled with fluid. Trying to push vibrations from thin air into thick fluid is, well, super inefficient. If we didn't have a solution for this, almost all the sound energy would be lost.
But of course, evolution came up with a brilliant solution. Your middle ear is basically a mechanical amplifier. It works in two ways. First, the surface of your eardrum is way bigger, about 14 times bigger than the tiny spot it pushes on. Think of a thumbtack. A big push on the flat end creates a ton of pressure at the pointy end. Same idea. That's a huge pressure boost. Second, those tiny little bones act like a lever system, which gives you another 1.3 times amplification. Add it all up and what do you get? An 18-to-1 increase in pressure. That's the magic number, the perfect amount to force that sound energy from the air right into the fluid of the inner ear. Problem solved.
Okay, so the vibration made it past the fluid barrier. It's inside the inner ear. Now, this is where the real magic happens. How do we turn that physical shaking into an electrical signal that your brain can actually perceive as, sound?
Let me introduce you to the Organ of Corti. This thing is basically the biological microphone of your body. It's tucked away inside that snail-shaped cochlea, and it is ground zero for hearing. Those pressure waves we've been tracking, they make a membrane in here, the basilar membrane, ripple and wave. And riding on top of that moving membrane are the real stars of our show, the hair cells.
But here's the thing, not all hair cells are created equal. You've got two main types, the inner hair cells. Think of them as the lead singers in a band. They're lined up in a neat single row, and they're the ones sending about 95% of the sound information to the brain. They're the main event. But then you have the outer hair cells. These guys are the sound engineers. They're arranged in multiple rows, and they do more than just listen. They actively tweak the signal. They're like a living soundboard, amplifying quiet sounds so you can hear a whisper and even helping to protect you from really loud noises. Pretty cool, right?
So, how does a little bit of movement actually become a signal? Well, as that basilar membrane ripples up and down, the tiny little hairs, the cilia on top of the hair cells, get bent against another membrane. This bending, this tiny little shearing force, physically yanks open tiny little doors called ion channels. And get this is the amazing part. These cells are so sensitive, they can detect movements as small as the width of a single atom. I'm not kidding. That tiny tug is all it takes. Ions flood in, an electrical charge builds up, and that is the spark of hearing.
But wait, where does the power for that spark even come from? It's not magic, it's an incredible biological battery. There's a special structure in there called the stria vascularis, and its whole job is to maintain a constant positive charge, about plus 80 millivolts inside that part of the ear. This is called the endocochlear potential, and it's basically the power supply. It's what gives that tiny atomic-level movement enough juice to become a real, robust nerve signal that your brain can actually register as sound.
I mean, that's just amazing, right? A system so sensitive it can feel something move by the width of an atom. But believe it or not, that's only half the story of your ear. So now we're going to pivot to the ear's second incredible feat, your sense of balance. Right next door to the cochlea is the vestibular system. And this is your body's personal, built-in gyroscope, keeping you perfectly oriented in space.
So your vestibular system basically has two different kinds of sensors for two different kinds of movement. First, for detecting rotation, turning your head, shaking it, no, you've got these 3 looping semicircular canals. Fluid sloshes around in there and tells your brain you're spinning. Then, for detecting straight-line motion and gravity, like when an elevator starts moving or you tilt your head, it uses a completely different set of sensors. These are the ones that tell you which way is up.
So how on earth do you sense gravity? The secret is these tiny little things called otoliths, which literally means ear stones. And that's what they are. They're microscopic crystals sitting on top of this jello-like membrane. Because they have weight, when you move or tilt your head, gravity pulls on them, or they lag behind just a bit. This drags the membrane and bends the little hair cells underneath. It's such a simple, elegant system, just using a little bit of weight to give you your sense of up and down.
Okay, so sensing motion is one thing, but using that information to, not fall over, that's a whole other ballgame. So now, let's follow those signals from the ear up to the brain and see how it all gets processed into coordinated action.
So the central hub for all this is a place called the vestibular nuclei, located in your brainstem. You can really think of it as mission control for balance. And it's not just getting info from your inner ear. It's a mad dash of incoming data. It's getting updates from your cerebellum for fine-tuning movement, from your spinal cord about where your body is, and it's even listening to the other ear to constantly compare notes. And based on all that input, mission control, the vestibular nuclei, sends out commands. It sends signals to your eye muscles to keep your vision stable when you're walking. That's why the world doesn't look like a shaky cam video when you run. It sends signals down your spine to make all those tiny, unconscious adjustments to your posture that keep you from falling over. And, this is a big one, it's connected to your autonomic nervous system. That's why when your vestibular system gets confused, like on a rocking boat, the signals get mismatched and you get motion sickness. So, there you have it. These 2 incredibly complex, sophisticated systems, one for hearing, one for balance, are just living right next to each other, sharing this tiny little space deep inside our skulls. It's pretty wild. So let's bring it all together.
And really, here's the main thing to remember. Your sense of balance isn't just from your ears. It's a constant, real-time mashup of 3 systems: what your inner ear is telling you, what your eyes are seeing, and what your body feels. Your brain is constantly demanding that these 3 signals match up. When they don't, like if one ear sends a wonky signal, that perfect push and pull system gets thrown off balance, and that's when you get that horrible, disorienting feeling of vertigo. So when you think about it, the mechanics of sound and the feeling of balance are just seamlessly blending together to create a massive part of your everyday reality. And it's all happening completely unconsciously, without you ever having to think about it. It kind of makes you wonder, right? If so much of how we experience the physical world is built by these hidden systems, what else about our perception is being quietly engineered, right now, just beyond our senses?